Three, two, one. We are on. We've got the special team with us to talk about celebrity divorces. And don't ask us why we, as family law attorneys, are as interested as the public, because I have no idea. With us today, Anthony Lai. Anthony, how are you?
I'm great, Don. How are you?
Good, good, good. And then we've got Mane K. How are you today?
Good, thanks.
Brooke.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. And then finally, how are you, Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing well. How are you, Don?
Good, good, good. We have got a bunch of stories that we want to talk about today. And I want to talk about the one that really caught my attention first, and that was the great Larry King. You know, Anthony, you're going to lead off on that one, right?
Yeah, so Larry King in August of 2019 filed for divorce. It was his 8th marriage. He was married a total of 7 times total, 2 times to the same person. This is his marriage with Sean Sedgwick. They were married for 22 years. They actually previously filed for divorce back in 2010, but after a few months of that, they withdrew their petitions. There's been kind of like a lot of stuff in the news and tabloids about alleged affairs. There was an allegation that Sean was having an affair with their kid's baseball coach back in 2010, and that was a reason.
Still talking about Larry King?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a whole lot of stuff. These people have lived their marriage very much in the public eye for a very long time, and it's kind of not really a surprise, but you know, at the same time, Larry is 86 years old. Sarah is 60 years old. So there's a 26-year age difference between the two people, which is kind of one of the reasons why people are thinking maybe that was a reason for them filing for divorce as of right now.
So, Stephanie, I know you're going to give us a little spiel at first, but tell us the general area of coverage about Larry King that you plan on covering. Because I got some comments, but I want to hold off until I hear from you.
Sure. So I think it's interesting how celebrities have a pattern of reconciling even after their divorces are finalized. I think in this Larry King case, he previously filed for divorce years ago when he found out about the affair,
Right.
But then he dismissed the petition when they reconciled. Years later, he's filing for divorce again. So there's a recurring pattern. You'll see it, you know, you've seen it with Elizabeth Taylor. She married Richard Burton, they got a divorce. Years later, they remarried, got another divorce. There's also Phil Collins, the musician. He divorced his wife. The settlement was finalized. They reconciled, and now they're going through another divorce.
He writes his best music when he's going through a divorce. So no,
He does.
Yeah, he gets those drums going.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in both of you, okay? Because you're missing the main point here, okay? Larry King is an icon. He's a national figure. He's going to go down in the Radio Hall of Fame, maybe the TV Hall of Fame, right? He's a nice guy. I've had an opportunity to briefly meet him while I was appearing on CNN. I was in the makeup room, and I sit down in the chair, and who do I look over? And there's old Larry King there, man.
Right.
As nice as could be, you know. And I'm going to tell you, I've even seen him at restaurants, and I swear that he's kind of waved. He's just this really nice guy. He's a Dodger fan, you know.
Yeah, that's where I've seen him.
Everybody loves Larry King, right? Right.
Yeah.
So Anthony, 8 marriages, man.
I mean,
you know,
Larry.
After a while, you can't blame it on the wife anymore, man.
You absolutely can't. And Larry is, you know, a guy who has been in millions and millions of living room TV screens over the past maybe 30 years. And people have just kind of come to trust him as someone who is reliable, someone who is honest, someone who gives great interviews and asks really inquisitive questions. So it comes as a little bit of a surprise that, you know, someone who is held in such high regard by the American public is susceptible to every single type of relationship problem that you can come across, just like every other normal person that we see here in our office.
Yeah, I don't buy that, Stephanie. Normal people don't marry 8 times.
I don't know him personally, but it seems like he's a very passionate person. Like his current ex says that he's so passionate, you know, she can't really say anything against what he's saying because he'll just go on this rant. I mean, it just seems like if you look at his prior marriages, they were a length of a year max. 1 year popped out, 2 years, 1 year. So either he gets bored very easily or I don't know, distracted.
Well,
There was
that's why this case is so interesting, because he's been married 22 times, whereas when I think of him as having been married a lot, but I never thought of like a long monogamous marriage. It was actually
Right.
surprising to me in doing research for this that they had been married for 22 years. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
the panel here doesn't know, except for me, that when you get older, you slow down a little bit, okay? You know, maybe he was a marriage of convenience. You know, I don't know. So, Anthony, you got some theories about why people get married multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as we all did a little bit of research for this, and when I was looking up some statistics, turns out in 2012 they did a study on how often marriages fail, and they found that 50% of first marriages fail or end in divorce, which we kind of already know. But then after that, 67% of your second marriages, and then interesting, 73% of third marriages will end in divorce. And they looked at some of the reasons as to why. There isn't a single set reason, but one of the conclusions that the author of the study posited was that usually second or third marriages, they don't have that kind of glue that holds the husband and wife or the couple together, and usually that glue is children. Usually in a first marriage, you're seeing at least one or two children as a part of that relationship, and couples will sometimes stick it out to try to kind of make it work for the kids. But in second and third marriages, that doesn't necessarily work. Now, in Larry King's case, he actually has two kids. They're 19 and 20 years old. So, you know, no custody or support issues, which maybe is part of the reason why he's going forward with it right now, rather than maybe 10 years ago when he originally filed. But that fact that the children oftentimes are the glue that holds the relationship together seems to be the case. Yeah.
Let me stop you there. Okay, I disagree with that study. To the extent children are the glue, what I see is the children are sometimes the problem. People, their lives change, and they can no longer be about themselves. And you know, suddenly, you know, it's not fun to be married to the person anymore because we're talking about child rearing, especially when one person doesn't want to be a parent any longer. Anyways, continue, sir.
Yeah. So, and then another theory that kind of was put forth was that kind of battle-ready attitude, where once you've gone through the turmoil and emotional, you know, distress of your divorce for the first time, and you come out of it unscathed, that second and third time, you're thinking, well, you know what? I already did it before. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Maybe I can just do it again and come out relatively unscathed, you know, the second or third time. So sometimes people will go ahead and be more willing to end either a second or third marriage just because they feel like they've already gone through it before, they've experienced it, and they're more emotionally equipped for the second or third separation. So that might be one part of the reason too.
Okay, well, I don't want to spend all of our time on Larry King, but you do have something else to say about your generation. I'm the only one on this panel that's not part of the millennials. So tell me why millennials divorce or don't divorce, and what's the stats there?
Yeah, so as we know, Larry King is 86 years old, and he's been married.
He's not a millennial.
8 times. He's not a millennial, but a study conducted in 2016 said that compared to their counterparts, young people, which are considered millennials, or around the 25 to 30-year-old age, are actually 18% less likely to get divorced as they were back in 2008. So an 8-year gap really made a big difference on the amount of divorces that we're seeing in younger people. So you look at the kind of discrepancy now between the younger generation and the older generation and their willingness to get separated. Now, granted, there's a shorter timeline that we have to measure these younger marriages, but in comparison, the rates seem to be a lot less for millennials these days compared to people their age in the past. So
okay, well, stop right there. I want to bring in our maybe the quintessential millennial. That would be Monet K. Okay, young, intellectual. Somebody who stands up for the downtrodden. Got all the views of a millennial. Tell me, why is it that your generation seems to be better off getting married than my generation?
I think because we might not be able to really afford it. So when we sit down to get married, we're like, is this really what I want? Is this really the person that I want? Because times are tough, and so maybe that's the mindset that we have going into it. I do know that there was a study a couple of years ago that millennials were buying less diamonds, and we were ruining the diamond industry because we weren't buying diamonds. We were doing something different and getting creative with the way our generation was getting engaged. So it might be that most of us are living together more before making that jump, or discussing our finances more because we can't really, survive financially possibly without having that conversation. And that's bringing a lot of honest communication, and we're learning more about each other and before getting married.
Okay, all good reasons. Brooke, I have a feeling though that maybe part of it is there were so many divorces in the parents of millennials that people have kind of studied that and said, I don't want to be my parent. What do you think?
I agree. I think a big contributing factor is that we're getting married later, which sort of ties into what Monte is saying. We're not super financially well off as a group. So, we're putting that off to try to start our careers. I know my mom got married when she was 25. I'm now 28. And she looked at me the other day and said, I can't imagine you being married right now. I think we're going to school more. I think we're just trying to get a lot of things out of the way, I think, before we start getting married. I don't know the statistics, I should have looked it up, but I know the age of people getting married has increased.
Oh, definitely. It used to be, even in my generation, my older siblings, we got married when they were 18, 19.
Wow.
I was kind of a later person and stuff, but like your mom, but yeah. So let's turn to another topic here. So the next person on the chopping block here is going to be Monte K. You got something to talk about this Dr. Drew character again. What are you going to say about him?
So last time we did this, I talked about Dr. Dre's divorce, and there's some juicy updates. So last time we spoke, she had filed, Nicole, his ex-wife, filed a motion for temporary spousal support. She was seeking $1 million a month, saying that she needed this money for heightened security. She was seeking for attorney's fees in the amount of $5 million. And the judge denied both of those requests. And one of the issue was security. She was saying, I'm getting death threats. The attorney was getting death threats, and that they needed security. Well, Dr. Dre said, hey, I offered to pay her security, but she fired the security I was paying for. And so the judge said, you know what, he can continue paying for her security so long as she hires somebody that is not going to be overly expensive than what he was paying previously. Then it turns out that Dr. Dre's business partner went to the LAPD and filed a report saying that Nicole embezzled funds totaling to almost $400,000 from an account between the business partner and Dr. Dre. Nicole's attorney said that because her name was on the account, she had every right to withdraw money. It seems like when this process started, she withdrew, I think almost a total of $400,000 worth of money from this account. And she was saying, I had the right to do that. And this is just a smear campaign. It's notably important that Dr. Dre is not the one who went to the LAPD to file this report.
Right. Sure. He had nothing to do with it. He's an innocent guy. He doesn't have friends, right? They do his dirty work for him, right? He's just a pristine guy. Okay, go ahead.
He was very abusive in the marriage. He financially controlled her. This is important because we all know Dr. Dre has a history of domestic violence and violence. He's beat a reporter before. He beat a rapper as well for coming out with a diss track against him in the 90s. And Nicole previously during their marriage said that she was like the person to bring him into this new direction and change his ways, and that he wasn't really abusive towards her. So that conversation is changing now within the scope of the divorce.
You know why she's really beating that drum about domestic violence is the spousal support code says it's whether it's unconscionable at the time of the divorce. And I'm not aware of any appellate court decisions that describe what that is, but maybe that's the angle she's trying to take. Interesting, very interesting.
John, what do you think about this embezzlement angle? I mean, like, do you think it's something that was actually malicious and she tried to secretly withhold funds? Or is it one of these situations where we just see people using business bank accounts, corporate accounts as their own personal accounts, not really intending on violating the law, but just not being very scrupulous about the way that they're keeping those assets separate?
Good question. You know, obviously none of us really know. We haven't read the divorce pleadings. My initial feeling is that when you got a billionaire, I mean, with a B, you know, a billionaire there, and somebody's taking $400,000 out of a business account,
That's a good point.
you know, it's probably not, it's, you know, it's nothing to the guy. It's peanuts, you know, it's pennies out of his jar. But it seems to me that what's going on is it's just hardcore litigation.
Yeah.
What do you think, Stephanie?
I think it's more, I would argue it's an advancement of attorney's fees. And I mean, down the line, you're going to just credit that half from the community, whatever. So it'll work out in the end. I don't think it's worth pursuing.
Think she's going to jail?
I don't think she should go to jail.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That intent element is really
though,
difficult to prove. You know, you have to show that there is actually in that intent to kind of permanently withdraw or withhold that those funds. So I think that's something that is going to be a high burden.
Yeah, good point. Brooke, what's your thoughts about it?
Yeah.
Well, importantly, we didn't mention this time, we did last time, she's an attorney. So I think, you know, a judge may look at her more harshly than your average litigant. So that, you know, isn't obviously in her favor.
Okay, cool. So Stephanie, you were studying some other cases that you thought would be worthy of our audience. Besides, you said Phil Collins was one of them. You know, when I jokingly said that he plays music, he played that one song about that everybody knows, that heavy drum beat song about, you know,
In the Air Tonight.
And I think he did that during one of his divorces. So what do you have to say about a guy that writes good music during the divorce? Should everybody be encouraged to maybe go through this process to get their creative juices flowing?
Yeah, I think he should remarry the same person 3 times. Hit song. So Phil Collins, he first met his wife. She was a translator when he was in Switzerland, I believe, on some tour. It was a long-term marriage, about 20 years, and they had 2 kids, but they finalized their divorce in 2008. She started dating someone else. So that finalization of divorce resulted in a settlement of about $50 million. Ooh. Yeah. So they separated, and then she remarried. She separated from him, and then he reconciled, Phil Collins and his former wife, Sevi. So the issue now is that she basically forced her way into his mansion, I believe in Miami. She like barricaded herself and she wouldn't let him in. So he's trying to get the house back, and she's saying that he needs to pay her certain dollars.
I got a question for you. Barricaded herself in a mansion in Miami. I mean, mansion, man. I mean, I could get in that thing. Just give me a nice little step ladder.
She's in there with some new man, so
Okay. He's probably barricaded in the mansion, not her. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
Brooke, what do you have to say? You got a case on point, don't you?
Yes, I have a case. I have an interesting case in that there's no divorce announcement. Actually, quite to the contrary. And there are 3 different celebrities involved. So the main players are Lily James, who you would have seen in Mamma Mia 3, Dominique West, who's going to be playing Prince Charles in the upcoming seasons of The Crown, and then Dominique West's wife, Catherine Fitzgerald, who I believe is an artist. I should have looked up her work as well, but she is also somewhat well known. A couple weeks ago, Lily James and Dominique West were seen in Rome canoodling, while Dominic.
Pardon me? Heard of that before.
Pardon me?
What does canoodling mean? I've never heard of that before.
It's a tabloid term. It basically just means like on a date, but in celebrity context.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite tabloid words to use, because no one uses it in real life. So they were seen, they're in a movie together right now. They went on a little jaunt, another good tabloid word, to Rome. he is still married while this is going on. They're seen multiple times acting as a couple. A few days later, Dominic gets back to his house in England, and he and his wife come out of the home. It's swarmed with paparazzi. They do somewhat of a photo shoot, kissing each other, and they leave a note, a handwritten note that says, our marriage is strong and we are very much still together. Thank you. And no announcements have been made since. Both Dominique West and Lily James pulled out of promotional stuff they had been doing. We don't know a ton about this case. It's also in the UK, but I think it's an interesting thing to talk about in terms of California law. So I wanted to use it as a jumping off point to talk about data separation, because I don't think that's something the layperson knows is a legal term. You know, sometimes I think people think once you file for divorce, that's your date of separation. Not true. The date of separation is also very important in terms of splitting up property, debts and assets, things like that. So it's a big thing to think about. It's not always an issue, but when it is an issue, it can be very hard because there's a lot that the court needs to consider, and it's very fact determinate. The law comes from Family Code Section 70A, and it says that the date of separation means the date that a complete and final break in the marital relationship has occurred, as evidenced by the two following facts. The spouse has expressed his or her intent to end the marriage to the other spouse, and 2, the conduct of the spouse is consistent with his or her intent to end the marriage. So I think the Dominic and Lily case is interesting because on the one hand, it sort of seems like he, by going on a very public date with a different woman, is showing, is conducting himself consistent with the intent to end the marriage. And then just a couple days later, he comes out with a sign saying, our marriage is strong and we're very much still together. It's just very interesting. And I think it would be interesting if I were Catherine Fitzgerald and I was living in the US in California. I might be talking to my attorney about, how we start going about figuring this out and using the data separation that I wanted. So I think it could go both ways.
Very interesting. Okay.
Do any of you remember back in the days when date of separation actually required that you move out of the family home?
Right.
And we thought it was really strange when people would stay together in the house while doing their divorce once they changed the law. But now, because it's so hard to find a place, almost half of the people that we're doing divorces for are still living with each other and seeing each other on a daily basis, which is, I'd imagine, have to be pretty awkward, right?
Dawn and I just had a case where we went into court and our client had to go home to his wife or his ex-wife every night, and it was a little contentious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been fun again. I think that what we should do is go around the horn one more time, and I'll pose the question: what have you learned from this informative session? Starting with Stephanie, tell us the lessons you learned today.
Just don't do it. If it didn't work the first time, it won't work the second time or the third time.
Oh, boy. What's your lesson of the day? Did you learn?
I have to go with Stephanie. It was very interesting to see how many couples were getting back together and then breaking up again. It just seems like maybe they had the most amicable divorces the first time, so you could get over that. But I just don't imagine, the fighting that often occurs when you're going through a divorce, even years later, kind of being able to get over that and trust the person. I'm not sure. It's very, very interesting to me.
Okay. And Anthony?
Follow your heart, but don't forget to leave your, also keep your brain in mind too, because if it didn't work out the first time, that's a pretty good indicator it might not work out for the second or third time either.
Cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us again today at our roundtable discussion. It was very lively. We'll do this again. See you next time.